Order the Public Works and Planning Committee meeting for June the 8th, 2021. Our first order of business will be to approve the minutes. I will call on Commissioner P. for that.
Mr. Chairman, I approve the minutes.
Could we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes passed. He left. Our next order of business will be the Highway Department, if they have a report. They do not have a report. They do not have a report. Our next order of business will be building codes. We'll let Miss Bell come to the well and give her a report.
Evening, Chairman, Mayor, Commissioners. Our building report for May 2021, we had a total of 390 building permits issued. 92 of those were single-family dwellings, which was up just a little bit from last month, which was 87, and up significantly from this time last year, which was 61, for a total revenue of $145,062. We had a total of almost 2,000 inspections completed during the month of May, and a little over 8,000 miles driven. And if nobody has any questions, I'll move on to development tax. Development tax in the month of May, we collected $357,750. We good?
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Bell?
And finally, zoning enforcement, we had a total of 186 inspections in zoning enforcement.
Does that conclude your report, Ms. Bell?
It does.
Motion to approve. Need a second. Second from Mr. Dodd. All in favor say aye.
I have one question.
All right.
I apologize. I'm just trying to.
That's all right.
Can you just elaborate on the court cases? We had 4. Can you just tell us a little bit about what those were on?
I can't off the top of my head. All I've got is the number in front of me. I can't. I don't even want to speculate. It is environmental court, yes. And typically it would be probably revisiting something that's the court or the judge or the DA has given them 30 or 60 or 90 days to correct whatever violation they had. So,
Does anyone else have any questions before we continue? We have a motion and a second. Everybody in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Report passed. Thank you very much, Ms. Bell.
I have one more thing, if that's okay. I just wanted to bring all of you up to speed on the school facilities tax. As Chairman Harris knows, I brought it to the steering committee last night. The collection policy is required to be adopted with the actual resolution itself. So we took that policy to the steering committee last night, and they did in fact push it forward to go before the full county commission when the resolution goes before it next Thursday night. And I do have paper copies of it here if anybody needs a copy or would like to review a copy. I'd be glad to leave those with you. And that concludes me.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, we're going to juggle the schedule just a little bit. We're going to move number 7 up next in line. That will be Miss Donna Barrett, and Mr. Mac Nolan is going to give us a report on the 10-year plan. If y'all come up and tell us what you got, we'll work you through and move on. Good evening.
I'm going to defer to Mac. He's the one that put the plan together, and I'm just here as part of the committee that, one of the Rutherford County representatives on the Central Tennessee Regional Solid Waste Planning Committee.
As you know, we've talked about the plan before. We had the meeting on the 20th, I believe.
Please, so.
And there's a 4-county region, and we'll pass the 10-year plan for each county and the annual progress report for each county. And y'all have been sent copies of those plans, so I don't know if you have any questions or not.
What I'm looking at is 2020. So at what point is 2021, since we're in June, at what point is that discussed?
When we actually start doing the reporting for 2021 will be January of 2022.
Okay.
When all this started, 1991, it was all done on paper. And in the regulations, it still says that you can change your plan at any time. You write the word it in, you send it to TDEC, and they either approve it or not approve it. Since that point, it's on computer now. So there's actually a form that you fill out, and it's filling in the blanks on a lot of things. And then it's all done on the computer, and you're supposed to have it submitted by March 31st. They extended it because of COVID, and then we extended it again, so we were May the 28th when we actually turned ours in. But they only have that program open from January to the end of March.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Nolan's correct. I was supposed to sign that. I didn't get the plan until, I guess it was a Friday. Rachel, what? Did I get that on Friday before we left for Memorial Day weekend? And I had not read the plan, and I knew that you all had not approved the plan. And so I called Jacqueline Matupi, who is at TDEC, and I said, whoever is in charge of this, just tell them that they're going to have to come down there and spank me or hit me or something, but I'm not signing this document for a 10-year plan that the commission has not approved, nor have I had an opportunity to review it. So I kicked it to this committee, and then I guess it'll go to the full commission next Thursday week.
But the regional planning committee that y'all are a part of, y'all have already voted on this plan, correct?
Well, we were under the assumption, Commissioner, that they were the authority. And Ms. Barrett pointed out that under Tennessee Code that they are not the authority, that it goes from that board made up of the 4 counties. Is that correct? It goes straight to TDOT. It actually, Tennessee Code says that they approve it and it has to come back to the governing body. Am I correct?
Slightly.
Well,
a review of the code indicates that for this 10-year plan, there are 17 things that are supposed to be provided prior to us voting on it as a regional committee. 16 of those things are, as Mr. Nolan has said, already in the computer system. It's data to input. That 17th item is certification from the local governing body of each county that they have approved the plan. So technically, that should have come before this body before we voted on it. We're just now discovering that process, so we're backwards right now. I anticipate that going forward, before we take it to the regional board for us to vote on it in future years, it'll come to this body between that January and March timeframe when MAC fills it out. You guys say, yes, we're in approval, we get a resolution from you, it becomes part of the package, and then from here going forward, it'll be voted on. But we're always a year behind, so in 2021, we're on 20, and 2022, we'll be looking at the 10-year plan, the update to that plan based on 2021 information and actions.
Did we vote on something like this last year? Because I do not recall. So, I mean, I don't want to get down in the weeds right now, but...
Well, this is
and I'm
time
a
to get down in the
Jonathan
weeds.
Whately.
If you ask TDEC about what we're getting ready to do, they'll say it doesn't have to be done because the region board was appointed by you commissioners. So therefore, you, through the board, approved it. So that's the way we've been under the process for all these years. There's some other also in there that there should be a advisory committee. The advisory committees went away long ago. It's still in the law that there should be there, but they don't have them anymore because they had a hard time getting people to attend.
So-
But we've been doing it the way it's been done, passed down for a long, long time. And Ms. Barrett actually read the way it's supposed to be done and brought that to our attention. So that's what brought us here.
I have a couple questions. Mac, what has changed from the plan last year that was approved and voted on? What has changed from then to now?
There's a section in there that talks about complaints. We don't have any mechanism to track complaints. We receive complaint calls, but there's no mechanism for us to track those. The city doesn't either. So we've always answered no. The Middle Point does have a mechanism, and they do track complaints, so we added in there that Middle Point tracks complaints. So that little phrase is added in there. There's a phrase that was added in there that in 2018, the county commission voted not to allow Middle Point to have access to our property for the purpose of core drilling and a possible expansion. And it was a 21-0 vote to stop that, which therefore stopped the expansion. And there was a third one. Ms. Barrett, do you remember?
I don't know if we're talking about the same third one, but there was an adjustment made to the breakdown of where the solid waste comes from. Commercial was identified as 0%, and in discussions with the city, they were able to determine how much of the commercial waste is picked up, so that now goes down into the breakdown. I think it was 5%, so instead of being 80 and 20%, it's now 80 residential, 5% commercial, and I forget where the 15 is. Industrial.
That'd be the schools.
Yeah, so.
So, help me understand this then. Some of the things come out of this committee and we're wanting to put in our 10-year plan cannot expand land. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That will be put into when we start the reporting for 2022, for the year 2021.
Okay, now, here's my problem with that. And you know this for 4 years, I have been screaming and yelling about our landfill. And there's 5 people that we agreed on for RFPs. 2 of the main players, which is Republic and Waste Management. Waste Management already said they're not even interested in it, which leaves Republic, which I also think leaves one more other person, which is us, to fix it. So how will that affect us trying to fix the landfill? If you don't want to expand, we can't just single out one business. We had to single out ourselves as well, will we not?
That's true.
Okay.
Now, that is but that's not a statement in the 2020 plan. And again, the 2021 plan, it is our anticipation that that will come to you before we vote on it as a full regional committee.
But that would be in the 2021 plan, that word, what you said.
That's the first I've heard this tonight, but I'm sure there'll still continue to be discussions. And again, this board will have an opportunity to vote on whatever is put in the plan, and we're only halfway through the year, so things may change as we go forward.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the TDEC survey questions, has that been added to the 2020 plan? Is that part of?
That is part of the whole document, yes it is. And then if you go to that very last section, every bit of that section, one of them is what this body voted on, the very first one, and the rest of the sections what the city of Murfreesboro wanted. Now, the city of Murfreesboro, I love him to death. Darren Gore is a great writer, but it only will take like 2,000 characters, and he had something like 8,000, so we had to paraphrase some of this stuff. But the message is the same, just not all the wording.
Again, reiterating, this survey questions is part of this 10-year plan.
Yes.
Okay.
And what Commissioner Harris is speaking of and what you're speaking of is where TDEC advised me to put what y'all wanted. Shouldn't be in the 2020 10-year plan, but it can be in the survey questions. So that's the reason it's in there.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Dodd?
I'm going to have to be redundant, and forgive me. This was really a hot topic over the course of the last few weeks. We've been exposed to this for the first time. Apparently, we've been doing it incorrectly. So, again, I'll be redundant. This was so controversial when our chairman wanted to add some stuff to this to affect the permit that Republic is submitting to TDEC. Am I correct? Do y'all recall that? So I'm just going to ask Craig's question again. Is there an opportunity here that we need to consider to modify this to affect the decision about Republic, or do we wait till next time? Did I just hear y'all say wait till the next presentation to us next year?
Public's expansion request came in February of 2021. This document is reporting the activities of 2020. The survey questions, you can answer the questions up to date. That's the reason all that information is the last question in the survey questions.
The TDEC portion, the third attachment here, is current. The 10-year plan ended in February.
10-year plan. Now, in the 10-year plan, there's also a statement in there that we have received RFIs and are planning on receiving RFPs in February.
Yeah, saw that.
The RFIs were received in 2020.
That's correct.
It says, big changes are in the works and all that. So again, we're not missing, and this is not me advocating for or against any topics. This simply is, we're not missing an opportunity to express ourselves to TDEC with this year's document, are we? Okay.
If I may ask another question.
Commissioner Blair?
So I read somewhere that to get it into the digital record, it has to be proposed between January and the end of March. Then if you don't get that sent to TDEC during that time period, then it's not on the digital record. I mean, you can add to it, but no digital record. Is that correct?
The law still says that you can write them your new plan or your amendment to your plan at any time. The law has not changed. And now what they have changed is the digital record is only open for a 3-month period. But they didn't change the law, so as my understanding, we can still type up and change our plan during this year. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, the reading probably is that open. Seeing the history in all this, though, first of all, let me say, Commissioner Dodd, I think going through things the way we have and discovering this now gives us a chance to get the process in an orderly fashion going forward. So when that issue comes up this year, as we're trying to address the solid waste future, we have an opportunity to get that in, the commission's comments in, and everything done in the proper fashion and passed properly, so we're not voting for something that you guys haven't seen and approved of. So I think we're good with that. Now, as far as being able to amend the plan at any time, based on the reading and history that I have seen in the statute, my impression is that the intent was that we can update it every year. It doesn't specifically say that, but since we vote on them once a year, that's my interpretation. I'm going to disagree a little bit with Mac on that, but the wording is it can be changed at any time. I will get the exact wording for you. What used to happen is it was an update every 10 years, and then they changed it to making an update every 5 years, and then it went down to at any time. Again, my interpretation is it is when we meet to vote on those yearly.
So how many boards are there, and why are we grouped with 3 small counties? And it looks like when they vote, they're making a decision for us, and we're probably bigger than all 3 of the other ones put together. That's just a guess. Am I understanding that their votes determines our course?
Yes. Now, back up to 1991, and I think it was finished in 93?
94.
94.
So the whole received.
Rutherford County was a lot smaller, and those other 3 partner counties to make up the 4-county region, all 4 of us used that landfill. So it made sense for us to be together. Today, we still use it, Cannon County still uses it. So it's, we're not the only one that still uses it, but all this was set up way back when.
Would it, Mayor, be in our best interest to stand alone?
Yes, sir. It doesn't make sense when Warren and Coffee are sending all of their waste stream to Cleveland, Tennessee, I believe. They have a tipping floor right there off the interstate by the Sheriff's Department in Coffee County, and they send it from that transfer station across Montego Mountain up into Bradley County to the landfill over in East Tennessee. They don't get many trips a day because you got a time change also, going from east to west, Central Time. We are so much larger than those other counties, and when you get outvoted, I don't know how the makeup of all this happened, how we ended up with 3 people. 4 people. We got 1 from the city of Murfreesboro. We've got 3 from the county commission. I recommended the gentleman from MTSU, Professor.
Joe Whitefield.
Mr. Whitefield, Mrs. Barrett, and of course Mac has been on there for some time. Maybe it's time that we, steering committee, look at this. Maybe we, Commissioner Harris, maybe steering the,
Look at it, Mayor.
and this committee needs to look at it and share it with steering. Maybe we look at, now's time to go our own separate way. What do we have in common? But even if we have 4 votes, we still get outvoted by, the 3 other counties in how we handle our trash.
If I could elaborate on that, please. There are, of course, we're not the only region. There's several others, I think 20 more regions where they've lumped counties together. There's also an opportunity, some counties stand alone with, are they Area 9 or Region 9? So they are their own solid waste. Based on the statute, if we were to change over to that, you're looking at least a year process, and that's clearly stated in the statute and everything that I've read. And one of the benefits, I think, now of the 3 counties being in with us, remember the stated goal for both the state and for the region, each region, is to have a 25% reduction either through the diversion or recycling in the solid waste annually. If it were not for us, at least early on, those 3 counties that join us would not have reached that 25%. And I'm not sure that all of them would now if we were to pull out. So that's something of a plus to group counties together so that they can balance each other out and help reach that 25% goal if they don't have a good solid waste plan in play.
Well, there was also in 1994 when it was adopted, Dr. George Eccles was appointed chairman, Mary Ann Eccles' husband, who served in the State House of Representatives. And I recall, because I was on the commission at that time, that $1 for every tire sold in Tennessee was to be collected across the state, and then it would be collected by TDEC. TDEC would then, in turn, give each region money to purchase a tire shredder to keep the tires out of the landfill. That never happened either. So it's discouraging that we have a structure that hasn't been that effective when those are now we're at that point. We're moving forward. Our growth, it's become an issue. It's raised its head, and now we need to determine what direction we want to go. If we can find comfort in staying in that same region, then so be it. But I think we need to carefully evaluate it and what's best for us in Rutherford County.
And if I may add to that, your concern of being outvoted, we've not seen that happen. It is, to use the phrase from one of the other members, it's basically a trust factor. If Cannon County approves, their legislative body approves their plan, we as a board aren't going to vote against a county that's already gone through their systems because they know their system better than us. As far as coming out, my caution would be, let us get this body up to being what it was planned to be. And if there are issues that need to be addressed that haven't, like the tire fee, a group of 4 fighting for something is a lot stronger going to the General Assembly to make changes than it is a county standing alone. But we've seen that for years. The mayor and I can attest to that as members of the General Assembly. So there is power in number for making those changes going forward. And, as we come up with solutions, those 3 counties benefit from the ideas that we come up with, or can be the test cases on smaller scales. So there are some benefits to having mismatched counties, if you will, in this process for multiple reasons.
Would y'all recommend that we stay where we are now till we get some type of answer off the expansion request?
Let me give you a little more history. Over in West Tennessee, there's a 4-county region. They're right there along the Tennessee River. They have been working for the last 4 years to separate into 4 single-county regions. CTAS has been working with them. CTAS is charging $40,000 per county to do that. They haven't gotten it done yet. And also what happens is when you start that process to divide up, you don't change it until a year after all 4 have adopted their new plan. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while. Now, to answer your question, there's advantages and there's disadvantages. Ms. Barrett spoke of the disadvantages for the other counties is a whole lot more than it will be for us.
Can you speak on If I put you on the spot, I apologize.
And you're not...
I'm trying to see, I feel kind of like Commissioner Blair. We've gotten to the size that we are now, but I think to go at it by ourselves. I think it's better that, I see going at it by ourselves. Now, you told me the disadvantages. Do you see any advantages of us doing that?
I can't tell you one way or the other if there are advantages, only because my research thus far has simply been getting us to the proper process we're supposed to be in. And there's still a huge learning curve for me on this. So I can't speak to the advantages. All I know is if there were any, it's going to take us a while to get to that point. As Mr. Nolan has stated, it's going to be a lengthy process. We already have a lot on our plate right now. I guess I would ask, give us the opportunity to make the regional committee all that the state felt it could be, and all that I think this county and the other counties think it can be as well. Let us be a helpmeet, and then at that point in time when we have plans that don't benefit all 4, or that all 4 can't be in agreement on, whether it benefits them or not, I think that would be a point in time to look at it, because right now I don't see where we would have any disagreement with the other counties with our plan. Again, they're ultimately going to benefit from it either now, just by association, or as they grow, learning the way to do it a better way.
So, Ms. Barrett, I'm not putting you on the spot, okay? I had no idea you were going to be here. So these questions I had before. How serious is this board? Because I kind of looked at minutes, and one of them was talking about football. How serious is this board? Because we're in a situation right now, it's pretty desperate. We're in some fights right here, and I just want to know how serious this board is. And Mac, you can jump in on this all you want.
I can tell you how serious I am on the board. I read the laws. I printed off everything that was involved in this. I've got a 5-inch notebook back there filled with information that I am learning and relearning and hoping to become somewhat of a resident expert on. So for me, this is very serious. I would not be serving on the committee otherwise. And for those of you that have been around on the county commission for a while, 20 years ago, I started looking for solutions for our waste issues, solid waste issues here in Rutherford County. When County Executive Allen was here, I brought in groups to show solutions to our solid waste that would benefit us in the long run. So for me, this is deadly serious.
Y'all may want to jot this down. TCA code 68211-800 series. That whole section is about this board. 68-211-800. And it goes from 801 to 867 or something. It's pretty lengthy.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a section in there that tells what the board makeup is and how it should operate, and that's what Ms. Barrett is going off of on the 17 or 18 different things. That's where those come from. It's a whole lot of different things, but to answer your question, Commissioner Harris, in 2005, this board went through what we're getting ready to go through again, the expansion of Middle Point Landfill. They went through that back then. The expansion happened in '06, but in '05 is when they went through that process. Other than that, when there's not anything like that coming up, the board meets every quarter. There's 4 counties involved, so each quarter it rotates. The meeting is held in a county, each county. So every year, each county gets one meeting. The meeting that we're going to have at the end of this month was actually scheduled to be in Coffee County. But Coffee County requested that we keep it here since the topic is going to be about here. But normally when we meet we're talking about setting up for the APR, we're talking about voting for the APR, and then the other meetings are just whatever's happening. And most of those other meetings for the last 5 or 6 years has been what's going on with us. What are our plans trying to do, and you know, the APR. We had a GBB study, and now we've got the RFIs and RFPs. So that's always been a big topic of the meetings because we've got more going on than the other 3 do.
Chairman Peake?
Well, I've got several things I want to say. Some of it's just airing out a little bit of anger that I've got. But before I start that, I wanted to thank Ms. Barrett for your help and for your participation on this board. I think that you're got that group heading in the right direction. Reason I'm saying this and the frustration I've got a few questions for you, Mac. First is, how do we know the things in the 10-year plan is what Murfreesboro City wants in there? How did we ascertain that?
If you'll read through it, in most instances when there's things typed in there, it'll say Murfreesboro dash and a phrase, and then it'll say Rutherford dash and a phrase.
I've read it, Mac. Okay. And I've seen that, but how do I know that's what Murfreesboro wanted in there? You just type that in, or somebody tell you to type it in? Did you go to Murfreesboro's council and ask them, is this what you want, or how did we know that?
The Murfreesboro Solid Waste Director and I would always sit down together, and I would do the typing, and he would dictate what he wanted in, and we discussed every phrase and tried to get it in there. For the past several years, the plan has been as broad as it can possibly be because of TDEC grant funding. If you wanted to get a grant to buy widgets, you need to have it in your 10-year plan that you plan on buying widgets.
Well, Mac, you know, the thing that frustrates me is we're doing this backwards. And I know you got a call because I talked to Chairman Cush, I talked to the mayor, I've talked to other commissioners, and none of us saw this plan before you went off with it. I requested specifically to see it, and I didn't see it, the finalized version, until it came back in an email again. Now, yes, I've seen parts of it, and I understand where you're coming from. You've done it a certain way for all these years. You didn't see any reason to change and worry about what a county commissioner wanted to know. So that's my frustration there. To me, you know, the city of Murfreesboro has every right to have input here, and I welcome their input. Don't anybody misunderstand that. I want their input. And I want the other municipalities' input, truthfully, because we're all in this together. We all got blood in this game. But I don't think it's one person's responsibility, meaning you or the solid waste director for Murfreesboro City, to make the decisions for us 350,000 people, however, how many we've got in this county now, without going through this county commission, through Murfreesboro's council, or any of the other municipalities. That's where I'm coming from. And the fact that our mayor hadn't seen it, our chairman hadn't seen it, and I hadn't seen it after requesting it, that's my frustration. And again, I understand that's the way you've done it in the past, but please, let's get that corrected.
It has already been corrected. The email that y'all received was a resend of a previous email that was right after the month before Public Works meeting. So that would have been March? No, yeah, I think it would have been March.
I don't recall voting on it.
No, it wasn't a vote, it was information. Because at that time,
And it hadn't been corrected.
At that time, we were still under the same impression it would always been that the board was appointed by the commission, and that board in the law was us, not the county commission board. You've been on this committee for, when's the last time y'all voted on the 10-year plan?
This term is the first time I've been on Public Works in 10, 15 years.
That's what I'm getting at. It's never come before this commission until now.
I've sat on it 7 years straight, and I've never voted on it.
Yeah, that's the way it's always been done.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Blair?
could you describe what's going to occur? My understanding is June 28th is a public meeting where citizens would have 3 minutes to speak, sharing their opinion about the situation as far as our solid waste. After that occurs, however much time that takes, what will this committee be doing after public comments?
My plan is that we'll have a sign-in sheet, everybody put their name down, and it'll be 2 sets of numbers, 1 1. So you keep number 1 and we'll tear off number 1, because some names are going to be hard to read because of the way they write, or some is going to be hard to, so we'll call everybody up by the number that they chose. And they should have 3 minutes to speak, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of repetitious speaking, but that's their time to speak. Then once all the public speaking is finished, then the 13-member committee will discuss, and then we should vote either up or down on the expansion.
Let's try to keep our questions to the 10-year plan, because I think we have some other engagements we may need to go to, but Mac will come back with his report, time for his report, and y'all can drill him. So
Regarding that, I don't mind elaborating just a little bit more since you opened the door on that. We vote whether or not the application adheres to or is in line with the 10-year plan, the overall 10-year plan. It won't stop there whether we vote it up or down. If we vote it down, there's an opportunity for that decision to be appealed. So it's just the next step in the process. As long as it's an active application, we had 90 days to get it before us and vote as to whether or not it adheres to what our 10-year plan is.
Commissioner Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, when you have Mr. Chairman Nollins and Ms. Barrett had a meeting at the police department last month. I had a chance to sit and listen to, so that's why I learned from them about 10-year planning and so on and so forth. And also I met the representative from different county too. Thank you so much for allowing me to join at that time.
Does anyone else have any questions pertaining to our 10-year plan? Seeing no one, I guess we will thank you for coming and hope to see you again. Do we need any type of a motion to move this to the floor?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would prefer a motion from this committee to accept the 10-year plan as presented to go on to the full commission Thursday next. Before I execute the plan, because it's my name that goes on the 10-year plan, but I want to make sure the county commission's behind it.
Is everybody comfortable with that? That'll give you time to read between now and next Thursday, and if you have any questions at that time,
You could send it without just forward it on without either a favorable or unfavorable recommendation at this point, but get it in front of the full body of 21.
just a motion to move it forward.
Yes, sir. If you don't feel comfortable, if you haven't read it and don't feel comfortable at this point, just because we're already, they can't find us for not sending it in, I guess they'll take trash away from us. I don't know what the penalty is.
I'm not comfortable with that. I think we should defer it. And I need time to look at this. I need time to study it a little bit, and I don't think I have time in 7 days to do it. So I'd like to make the motion to defer this to the next month meeting.
Second.
Well, can I go back and, you guys, is there any penalty for that deferment? All right, because y'all need to meet and vote by the end of this month, right?
Already voted. Our board has already voted.
On the 10-year plan?
Yes.
Okay.
So what happens if you go to the June 28th meeting with no decision from this body?
That meeting has nothing to do with this meeting.
Again, it's gone up. The only thing that hasn't happened is the mayor signing off on it. TDEC gave us a delay for getting the public hearing that was required on the 10-year plan in the first place. So we're already behind the 8 ball. I understand the concerns that everyone has. I would hope that what is there could be digested and read before the upcoming county commission meeting. My goal in getting this here now, and in reading over it, other than the angst that it's never come the proper way, my goal was to set the process going forward, because things are starting to get, I don't want to say more dicey, but it's going to require more oversight and more input from the county commission as we're making decisions with the RFPs that have been before us. So I'd prefer if you guys went ahead and passed it either with or without recommendation onto the full county commission. Let us get this behind us. The mayor can go ahead and sign off. We've already approved.
So no matter what we do, it's already been approved by your committee.
It has.
So there's not going to be any changes made to this 2020 no matter what we decide.
That's incorrect, sir. First of all, we'd get a resolution to make the package complete, so we'd be in line with the TCA. If there were changes, those could be presented as amendments. As Mac has said, the statute says we can change it at any time. So we could come back at our next meeting, which will be August at this rate, and do an update to that based on correcting the process and getting input, albeit behind the 8 ball, but we can make changes.
To 2020.
To 2020. I'd prefer not to delay it any further, because there's so much more coming on with the RFPs, the June 28th meeting. Our plate's already full. So let's get past this. I'll promise to read over everything and look at past results, and take any questions you've got. I know Mr. Nolan will take any questions between now and the full county commission meeting, but let's just start saying from here going forward, we're going to do it the proper way that TCA states it.
Mr. Chairman, to answer the mayor's question, what's the penalty for not doing it? They're not going to give us grants this coming year. Guess how many grants we're scheduled to get this coming year? None.
Commissioner Dodd.
Okay, yeah, so you said that in a sarcastic way. So the fact is, there's no negative consequence for pushing it a month. I understand we're reluctant, let's get this thing going, but there's no financial penalty that we're aware of, and some decision in the near future won't be critically delayed if the motion is granted?
My personal opinion is unless we call TDEC and tell them what we're doing, they're not going to know what we're doing because we've never done it before. And the other counties haven't done it this way either, so there's not going to be any repercussions there. This is the opportunity for us to change the way we've done things in the past. But as far as the final result, unless y'all decide you don't like the plan and you want to try to change something, you got to remember you're reporting history, not current, so everything's in 2020, then we could do an amendment to change the plan that's already been voted on.
If we're deferred, then we would have to bring it back before Public Works in August and to the full commission in August, is that correct? If we delayed it to August, what's the problem, concern, negative outcome?
Well, first of all, TDEC does know that it's been delayed, and that we're asking for this information, at least from Rutherford, or that I asked for that information from Rutherford County, and I think the mayor's even indicated he won't sign until that takes place. Again, Commissioner, it just adds one more thing to what we're trying to work on currently in current year. As Mr. Nolan has said, all this is past history. I suspect when you look over it and review it again, you're not going to find that many changes that you have to make, or want to make. I won't say have to make, want to make, if any at all. So again, this is just, we're setting the standard and saying from here going forward, we're going to do it the proper way. We won't take it as a board. I won't take it as a member of the planning board until it's been approved here locally. That's just going to be my standard as being a representative for Rutherford County on that board.
Commissioner Blair?
Just to reiterate, if we do move it forward to the commission and the commission approves it, we find something that we do not like, we can get you to change it we'll get you to change the past in the future.
Correct. Kind of like Back to the Future.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I would just like to ask this body to, it's only 8 pages, the 10-year plan, and it's basically a check mark on the little box of all the things that surely between now and Thursday week, you can find an opportunity to read over this, and let's move forward. It helps them. Let us put this behind us and give me the authority to sign it. Otherwise, if you want to put it off to August, I'm not going to sign it until I know that my commission feels comfortable and passing and instructing me to sign it on their behalf. That's just the way I am. So that's your options.
Commissioners, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Do you wish for it to stand, or do you want to rethink it?
I'd like to withdraw my motion.
The second?
I will withdraw since he has. I didn't have my mic on, sorry.
Okay. The motion and second has been withdrawn. Now, do we have a motion to move it to the full commission?
Motion to move to the full commission.
We have a second. Well, now, looks like the motion's going to fail, lack of a second. Would
I'll
somebody
second.
like to make
I'll
a
second.
third motion? Oh, you're going to second the motion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Let the records reflect 1 no. Thank y'all very much.
I would suggest that you ask the county attorney to read that 68-11 800 series to make sure that I'm wrong.
We can do that.
We will continue with our meeting. We'll move back to number 2, and I believe the mayor will take this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We had been requested by Ben Lohman to sign a franchise agreement. They wanted to enter into the northeast corner coming into Milton and other parts of the county to bring video streaming services. They have sent their agreement. We have sent it to Mr. Christensen, our attorney, he has made some corrections protecting Rutherford County. He has sent it back to them, awaiting to hear from them. So the ball's in their court at this point. I guess they got to get their attorney to look at what we sent back that we didn't like in the agreement. So we'll probably put it on the August agenda once that agreement comes back.
Any questions? Mr. Pete?
You said this was a video streaming? Or is this high-speed internet, or what are we talking?
High-speed internet, and it's supposed to be, Rachel, in it.
Okay, and then I do have another question. Are there boundaries in this county that these companies are not crossing? Or what is the story? Are we bidding this? Could he go anywhere in the county he wanted to?
Well, to my knowledge, that's happening right now, that Comcast and AT&T and now we have United down in Chapel Hill, and I didn't find out until yesterday that Middle Tennessee Electric had actually purchased United Communications. They now own 80% of that company, who is bringing broadband into Eagleville, Rockville area. And I believe, in talking with Chris Jones yesterday, they actually have some fiber. They've already come into the downtown area of Murfreesboro. So I don't know who is the policeman over those types of...
That's something I'd really like to know. I think the more competition we have, if we've got one person saying, hey, this is my group or my area,
sure,
nobody else can come in, versus we've got, say, 3 to 5 people that want to do this service for the county, and we can look at it and say, hey, you've got the option.
I do know in Laverne they have Nashville Electric, and I think there's another service in Laverne that offers megabit TDS. TDS is in Laverne, so evidently there's no restrictions on.
Well, is Ben here? Maybe he can answer that question for me.
Who's that?
Ben
Loman?
franchise agreement. Is that person that's representing them here? Okay.
No, because I think they're based out of Smithville, maybe. Sparta. Yeah, Warren County, somewhere in that area. We can find out what restrictions are, if any. I'll get back with you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. No, I think that we just keep it in committee and wait to hear back from them, and we'll bring it back for approval at the August meeting if they approve like what we've sent on our behalf.
We'll move on if no one has any more questions on that. Number 3, engineering agreement for 4, possibly 11 convenience centers.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have before you tonight is the engineering agreement for 4 and possibly 11 based on what this committee decides they want to do moving forward. But we have identified and we have here with us tonight Mr. Jay Bradley with Energy Land Infrastructure. He's already been working with the approval of this committee doing environmental studies on some of these locations. If we could move to suspend the rules and let Mr. Bradley come up and brief us on where we are up to this point, what his firm has been able to do for us, and as we move forward, allowing me to sign the engineering agreement, and if we find the money and this committee and the full commission wants to move forward on redesigning the other convenience centers. Right now we have Weekly in Smyrna, which is our busiest facility. We have Leanna, which we should have done something a couple of years ago and haven't. But we've got Rockville, and we have Walter Hill and Almaville. And I think can brief us on where we are on those locations as well.
If no objections, we'll suspend the rules and let him come forward. Come forth.
Yes, sir. Up here. Wherever. Just
It don't matter.
come on up here.
Make any difference?
Chairman, members of the committee. We did, speaking with the mayor back in February, March, we were asked to pull together some concept plans for 4 convenience centers, the 4 you mentioned, Leanna, Rockvale, Weekly, and Walter Hill. Since that time, there were some questions about whether we were going to move forward with Walter Hill based on property owner and the potential of maybe that moving to a different location. And then with Weekly, there has been some talk about moving that site to the north, maybe a property exchange, is my understanding. So those 2 sites we haven't done a lot of work on those. Our focus to date has been on the Leanna site and the Rockvale site. We have had those surveyed. We also made a site visit to Williamson County. When was that?
Fall.
Yeah, to just kind of take a look at how their convenience centers were operating. They had a couple of site aspects that we thought would be beneficial here that we're not currently using. For example, one was a ramp type system, so that you actually drove up a ramp and you would dump into top-loaded dumpsters. And so I think that's what we're trying to incorporate in all the sites if we have the physical space to do it. We're also looking at circulation, fencing, landscape, stormwater, all the normal aspects of a site plan within the county. And so that's kind of where we are today. And I think this contract that's in front of you tonight would let us go all the way through design for those 4 sites and get it ready for construction.
Yeah, so the work that Energy, Land, and Infrastructure would do would bring us up to the point of putting it out to bid. Mr. Bradley, what do you anticipate once put out to bid? What do you think the construction time of those, and would be better to single shot bids or collectively put all 4 out to bid for a construction company? And how long do you think it would take to construct those?
I would say just from my experience, I think you're going to get a better bid price if they're bid all at once. I think there is, I hate to say you're buying in bulk, but I do think you get a better bid when you're making these type of improvements if you're doing them all at once as opposed to doing them individually. Construction-wise, depending on time of year, I would say 6 months, something to that, somewhere in that range. Obviously, we would, if we're having asphalt, it would depend on time of year when we got started. We, obviously want to try to.
So if we started
paving season.
If we started in July and then 6 months, that puts us right in the middle of February. So we'll probably have to end up waiting until March or April.
We would. Usually, plants will be open throughout till the end of the year, right before Christmas. But usually after that, you're waiting until about March.
Are we looking at any kind of plan to re-engineer these sites and keep them open at the same time?
Yes, sir. We were specifically asked to do that where we could.
Okay.
Leanna is one of the sites that we're trying to leave the existing operation open while we build the new site, and then a fire hall type building would be in addition to the convenience center operation.
The fire truck, the tanker truck that helps on the ISO rating in Leanna is in that old building that's located on the premises. The vision is to raise that building and bring in some type of metal Quonset hut type building to put it in, heat only, just to keep the water from freezing, no heat, air conditioning, because nobody will be staying in that building. It's just access for supply in the event they need it for fighting the fires in that area. Rockvale, the thought process is to move behind the old Rockvale store on the old Rockvale Road. I guess that'd be the old Highway 99, and leave the current location across the street, put in a stop sign at the three-way where the roads intersect at Rockvale, leave recycling over where they currently are, and then bring the ramp system as talked about over behind the old Rockvale store that we recently donated to the Rockvale Community Center. Smyrna would be moving down to the property that we currently own, where our clerk's office is, and then run sewer for $30,000. The estimated price from Mr. Hercules to run sewer. Smyrna would give us the easements rights to run sewer from G Street up to our current site to make that piece of property more valuable after we leave and relocate down on, I guess that's G Street as well. And then sell that piece of property that we currently have. It's not worth as much without the $30,000 sewer, especially being on Weekly Drive. It's a valuable piece of property. We estimated between $750,000 to $800,000 we could probably get for that site, and once the sewer is brought to that acreage.
I'm getting kind of lost in the weeds. I know whatever we decide here, if this comes to budget, Commissioner Dodd and I'll be looking at this Thursday night. So my question is, what's the total here for each project? I know you said you hadn't been working on a couple of them because of circumstances, but, just reading through this, I was digging when Lisa came up, trying to figure it out. And like I said, I got lost in the weeds, but I got Leanna 1.9 and Rockvale, and some of these are approximate, I know.
Yes, sir.
Around 900,000. The Walter Hill, maybe we're not talking about it yet, but what bothers me about it, if we're asking for approval tonight, part of this approval is the engineering fee would be 6.25% of the total project. And I have a problem approving money what I don't know what the total is going to be, or at least reasonably close to it. So can you enlighten me on the cost on these 5 that we're looking at?
And how we, for example, well, let me back up. The percent construction contract is standard. It's called EJCDC contract, which is Engineer Joint Contract Document Committee. I believe the renovations for the courthouse was also a percent construction type contract. Without knowing exactly what each site was going to entail, the percent construction, we felt that was equitable on both sides, without knowing all of the site aspects that would be involved. For example, Rockvale we've actually broke it out, and we'll be using both sides of the road. One side for the recyclables and the other for this ramp type system and compactors. The Leanna site will have a building for the fire, the pumper truck that the mayor mentioned earlier. So when we first were negotiating the contract, ASCE, it's American Society of Civil Engineers, has a fee curve, which is based on percent of construction. I believe we were somewhere in the range of 7.5% based on preliminary estimates of the construction cost. The mayor felt that because we had several of these sites that we were going to do, we negotiated down to a lower fee, which is that 6.25%. That's the short version of how we came to that. Without knowing, I mean, we could, now that we have a better idea of of what some of the construction costs, at least from our estimate, we could tie down that construction estimate closer today. As we go through design, we'll actually have a final estimate to give when we go to get ready for bid. That makes sense.
You say you're going to have by this Thursday or when? Maybe I misunderstood you.
But the estimate that's in there now is what we have to date. That's the construction estimate that we have as of today.
So,
I don't have that contract in front of me.
Walter Hill, these are the numbers?
Yes.
Is that correct? Walter Hill is, subtotal is 769,540, and then alternate one is 220. So you're looking about, what, about $1 million?
And so the alternate that was in there, the initial thought was to have concrete throughout the entire site to help future maintenance of those sites. That's obviously a higher cost, so we put an alternate in to having heavy-duty asphalt pavement.
My suggestion to Mr. Bradley was to go with, what'd you call it, high-density asphalt as opposed to concrete? Heavy-duty asphalt, and then just concrete where the dumpsters would be. I know Commissioner Dodd, I like what you did down here at the city. You put the metal flakes in the concrete, and that, I think that would be important from a stress standpoint, is to beef the concrete up to where it doesn't crack. But then you've got, without the alternative, you've got weekly, I believe at 1.568 was the estimate on weekly. Rockville is 746,000. And Leanna was 1,494,000. So those are the four that I'd like to move forward on to get to the point and get it on to finance, Mr. Chairman.
I'm trying to count in my head here.
Ms. Nolan?
We're looking at least 5 million, somewhere in that, knocking on that door without Amiable. And then the construction, the fee would be another 6.25. I'd ask that the finance director speak.
Can I have that? I'm just trying to understand what to bring to budget. So, I mean, I understand the 6.25 and it's based on that. So really, I guess I'm asking, what are we approving the whole project? Are we approving construction and estimated? I mean, you've estimated what the cost of the construction is. So I'm looking at it, maybe it's my two things that we're doing is authorizing the projects, all 4 projects, and the engineering contract along with the projects.
That's correct.
All right, because this, I just want to pull whatever page it says, that where it says the percentage, the first part, 45% is the survey and the preliminary design, 45% of the fee, right? Right. And then the final design, it's we'd pay 40% and then 15% in the bidding and negotiation, which is no different than what we've done before. It kind of comes in that way. But it's all predicated on the estimated construction, which to me then is predicated on the committee authorizing the projects to move forward.
Yes, that's my understanding too, yes.
That's correct. That's correct, Ms. Nolan.
I'm going to put it in the way of a school. The school board's going to come and ask for, hey, we want to build a school. And they give you, well, this is how much the design, and this is how much FF&E and construction. And we say, okay, the commission authorizes these projects, and when to be funded, fill in the blank. And then when the commission authorizes that, then the school board is authorized to start entering into contracts after they've done their bid process. So that's kind of where, to me, that we are now. We're asking for approval of funds with this estimated cost, what he's got, and I don't really understand what's alternate one. I mean, that's beyond mine.
And the contract will be very, I mean, if not identical, very similar to the contract that was used to renovate the courthouse or for a school. It's I think we all being engineers, architects, we use the same percent construction contract. It's standard language in the front. Time frames, percent of preliminary, that may change a little bit in the construction cost and the fee that's negotiated, but the legal language that's in it is pretty standard.
Commissioner Blair.
So, whatever decision this committee makes, would it end up the budget?
That's correct. You're approving the engineering agreement, which would encompass the 4 convenient facilities. Then it's up to budget to decide how to fund it, and then it goes to the full commission from that point. Ms. Nolan had indicated that we could either take some or all from ending fund balance, or some of ending fund balance and some, which we discovered just day before yesterday, that some could come from the American Rescue Plan. She felt comfortable with seeing that in that 151-page description of where the money could come from. Or you could, whatever's left, if the public safety 2 chunks of money being proposed by public safety are expended, that's about $52 million out of the $64 million. You still got some cush left, but we want to give some to our employees as well from that plan that we were able to find, that we can use that as well for stipend funds to give our employees through the COVID operation.
Any more questions? Commissioner P.
Well, I'm just a little nervous here. Maybe I accuse somebody of not, or being a pessimist, and I'm afraid tonight I'm being a little pessimistic. We're so close to closing our budget out, and I know where we're at with that. I think Max got money in his ending fund balance out of solid waste. Some of this money could come out of. I don't know how much. Mac, I don't know if you've got that on the tip of your tongue, but that might be something we want to know, because we're going to have to figure out how to finance this, because this would go into this year's budget. The other question I've got about it coming out of his ending fund balance is, we're looking at different projects. For instance, we've even talked about doing a composting or a MRF or something, or a transfer station on our own. And if we do, the place we'd be looking for money would be out of Max ending fund balance. So my question is, how are we going to pay for this? So that's what I want to make sure you guys are sitting here realizing before we say, yeah, let's do this. And I'm not saying let's not do this. I'm just saying I want to find a way to finance it without affecting our tax rate.
Mr. Dodd.
And the amount we're considering is an estimated construction cost. We're assuming you're 300,000 plus for the contract based on the estimates. And I'm just going to repeat, Chairman P, that and Lisa, the vote tonight is on the $300,000 fee. And if it gets utilized, we could shelve the project. We're not committing to the project, correct? If we forward this on, we're committing to the engineering component. And again, you explained it a moment ago, but will you think we would be bonding or anticipating the full construction cost if we commit to the engineering cost?
Okay, I'm showing my ignorance. Did you say 300,000 is all we'd be out?
Yeah, I'm just, if it's $5 million worth of construction at 6.25%, 313,000
Okay.
paid out in 3 installments.
And just,
Right. It would have to, if it was to be bid and a contractor selected, then that construction contract would come back for approval.
but your work would go survey and, just as my ignorance here, okay? Survey and preliminary design is at 45% and final design at 40%. Is the basis for those percentages, these numbers that you've got there? Because we're really not going to know until we...
Yes.
So your fee is based on, I'd be getting invoices with that estimate that you've got
Yes.
in those things before,
Correct.
and you would bill us at 45 and 40%. So we could potentially have 85% of the estimated cost here, and then decide
Yeah, which would be
we don't want to.
267,000 could come in
Yes.
up to the time to negotiate the bid. 267 would be the expenditure about. So is that what we're looking at, is the 267, how to fund it? And then, though we're down the road to committing to $5 million in construction, I'm not at all comfortable with that.
And we've done that with schools too.
Correct.
You've said, you've set aside X amount of dollars for engineering, and that's it, and we're stopping, you know. So if that's all we're doing, 'cause, you know, we only are just doing, I guess that's why the committee to me needs to decide, are we moving forward with the project, or we are only going to do design and come back and talk about it?
So-
Whether we're moving forward with construction.
Mrs. Nolan, you had shared with me that we could possibly pull money from the ending fund balance. The ending fund balance for solid waste is $8 million, about $8 million. Okay, between 8 and 9 million. And that's what this is designed to do, is these type projects. I'm here to tell you, members, there's not a department in the entire county that touches our citizens more than our convenience centers. You come in, you pay your taxes to Ted downstairs once a year. You hopefully don't have to go to court and use those departments. You go get your tags once a year at the clerk's office. Outside of that, our convenience centers touch our people more than any department. Unless you're building a house, you don't go to codes, you don't go to planning, anything else. So we would like to upgrade those and use those fund balance, or, like I said a moment ago, Ms. Nolan, we identified that we could possibly use some rescue money, American Rescue Plan, in a combination of, we could use half, maybe $2.5 million from fund balance, and some others, whatever's left over from those other projects that we're looking at. But I think to move forward, to get it to budget and let budget decide how they want to pay for that.
Mr. Chairman, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying I'm against this project. As a matter of fact, I'm good with this engineering part of it to go ahead to budget. But I'd like to see some, as close as we can get to hard numbers on there, because I'm kind of like the mayor. If we continue doing convenience centers in this county, we need to improve them. We need to expand the hours that they're open. We need to make them where they're safer and easier to use. Hopefully this thing's getting out here. But anyway, I'm not opposed to this. As a matter of fact, I'd like to see it go to budget, at least on the engineering part, so we can see what these costs are going to be.
And Ms. Nolan, don't we already have 200,000 plus in the budget currently?
Yes, I mean, we've already amended the money in. It's not enough. That's using old numbers. But that would be something that, what I'd talk to you about, are we going to contemplate running these projects through the solid waste fund, or are we going to go ahead and moving money out into the capital projects fund to start accumulating those costs there, especially if it costs us several years to complete. But yeah, I'd be bringing that forward.
In the past, have we not already designated some money for design fees for some of these?
That's what he's talking about.
For Leanna and Rockvale?
200,000, yes, sir. It's already in the budget.
200.
You've already voted on that.
The money is already there for the design, but my question was, what are we doing? It's all based on that. Are we just doing design, or are we asking for the entire project? Asking the commission authority to fund the whole project? I just didn't know where we were. That's why I wanted to be clear with what we're bringing to budget.
So if we have 2/3 of the money, we're actually just looking for 1/3 of the money to approve tonight for design?
If all that you're asking is for design, I'll probably come with an amendment to move it out into capital projects.
Yes.
That's what I would.
Are you taking this as a, to design, or to design and build altogether?
I would like to get it to that point and let Finance Committee get it on to Finance and let them decide where to take the money. I mean, design and build, I mean, at what point are you going to kick it into next year this time and talk about it?
So if we pass it through tonight, it'll go to budget Thursday night, and
yeah,
could go either way, right?
Yeah, well, I was laboring under the misconception that we didn't have any money for engineering set aside, so that's my mistake.
We did that.
So we've got 196,000.
That we set in engineering.
And we said, what, about
200,000.
Two more, so.
Blair?
If I'm understanding correctly, we could move this forward to budget, and the budget took a harder look at it and decided just to do
Correct.
based on that, I would forward.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. All in favor say aye. Wait. We see if we have some discussion on this motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Dodd.
two questions. How much have we spent of the 200 in the surveying and et cetera that you mentioned previously? Your update was, so the work you've done thus far, you mentioned
anything.
surveys, and on Leanna and Rockvale, you got postponed at Weekly and Walter Hill. Have you invoiced the county?
I have, but I don't think that's been paid to date.
Yeah, he has invoiced and hasn't been paid.
Do you recall what that invoice was? Okay, that's okay. That's minutia. But we don't have 200. We have 200 less than what he's already spent. Number two, this motion is to potentially fund $5 million worth of construction, not just engineering. So you're going to leave it up to budget to perhaps.
Right.
I think they're basically looking for budget to come up with a way to pay for this. So that's basically what we're looking at, and why we're passing it on to let budget look at it, see, hey, where are the funds we could put together to make this happen.
Any more questions before we vote?
Yeah, what's the
Mr.
amount? 200,000 more? What was your amount, Mr. Blair, Commissioner?
We don't know, because we don't know what's been spent out of the 200, or what's going to be spent out of it. Nothing's been spent, but he's billed you for it. You're going to have to. So.
Did we say 260,000? Is that, what was the figure we're looking at for the engineering?
I anticipate 313,000, but we will only spend 85% prior to choosing to put it out to bid, which is 266,000 if my numbers are right. 266. It's a range, though. It's only a range.
Right, I'm going to go back, because I'm hearing the mayor, tell me if I'm wrong, that you would like to see the whole thing go, the whole project, construction and engineering, the whole estimate.
That is correct. I'd like to see the whole
It's a
thing.
it's a $5,313,000 vote we're having here.
Plus the amount of engineering. And to me, that's what I would envision bringing for y'all, if that's what this committee is agreeing to, to bring forward the total cost of the projects and budget to figure out how we're going to pay for it.
Well, can we amend that to say up to, say, 275,000? That cover it? That way we just got a range in there, and then we can decide at budget, hey, how we could pay for the entire project. I mean, I don't have a problem looking at it there, as long as this committee's behind us.
So they're going to amend it to 275,000.
Can you validate
Just
that?
Just the engineering?
Yeah,
Just
engineering
engineering.
prior to negotiating and managing the bid.
Yeah, I mean,
would be about 285-ish.
The construction would have to come back through this commission
Yeah,
anyway.
construction will come back through the committee.
That would have to.
Would you like to have the motion read back to you?
Let's do that, since I've thrown a lot of mud up.
Mr. Blair, could you repeat your motion?
My motion was to move the project forward, but the chairman asked for a max of 275,000 for the engineering. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman? So that would be my motion to move the project forward to budget with a cap of 275,000 for the engineering part.
Okay, and Mr. Sereno, you still holding to the second? Mr. Sereno's second, you got it? Y'all ready to vote on it? All in favor, say aye.
I think we had to do a roll call.
Got to do a roll call.
Commissioner Dodd?
Why am I first? I want to hear what Chairman P is going to vote. Look, yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Chairman Piercy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just to clarify something, I know there's about 275,000 in this fund. We're going to be doing some more withdrawals from that. So that's why I said up to, I expect it to be on the lower end there. If not, that's something we'll address when it gets. Thank y'all.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
If it would please the commission, what would we think about a 3-minute break? Engineer report, Mr. DeMasi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. First thing I want to talk about is our available lot inventory. Of course, this is kind of goes hand in hand with what Tanya Bell spoke about earlier. The available lot inventory has really been hovering in the kind of upper 700s, lower 800 range for the last several months. To this month's really no exception. Whenever they approve, or I should say whenever they permit a lot of lots, a lot of the times it's offset by the plats that have been recorded, which we did have a couple larger section lots we recorded this month. So that number, again, it's pretty much been fluctuating in that range for the last several months. I would anticipate that continuing on for the next several months at least moving forward, but there's still plenty of activity going on. So from that standpoint, I don't see a slowdown necessarily. So that's, go ahead, sorry.
Yes.
So these numbers, when I get confused on these because a lot of times, like let's take for instance Harvest Woods.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on here you have 35 lots available. There's also, let me see, Section 3 estates at Harvest Woods, 35 lots. Now, there's another section going. Has that already been approved?
Well, that Section 3 of Harvest, well, that's the estate of Harvest Woods. So like you said, there's 35 lots that were approved, but there's only 5 lots left in the actual development. There's only 5 lots that can be permitted. The other 30 have been permitted already. So the other Harvest Woods that you're talking about, is that on the, which list are you looking at? Are you looking at the recorded lots, or are you looking at the ones that haven't been recorded yet?
Looking at the inventory on the very first.
Okay. So that first section.
Plats with available lots.
Okay. Which page of that are you on?
I am on
2 of 5?
2.
Okay. So I see Harvest Woods, Section 3. That's the estate of Harvest Woods. They changed the name of that. So it's one and the same. At first, it was going to be Section 3, but then they changed it to the estate of Harvest Woods. So it's kind of a same area where Harvest Woods is, but it was kind of a separate development from the Harvest Woods subdivision.
Yeah.
So, but is there another section? I think all the other sections are built out on that one. Yeah.
So it's just like when I see these neighborhoods, and then I know that they are expanding. And so, is this number include that expansion that you've already approved in Planning Commission, or?
Only if it's recorded. If it's not, yeah, right.
Yeah.
This first list is only recorded lots. The second list, after that, page 5 of 5, and it goes into that second list, where at the top it says subdivision plats not recorded, that's where you'd find those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The second list is that huge stack on the corner of your desk, didn't it?
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought.
Which gets larger every day, it seems. Yes, sir. Okay, if there's no other questions on that, as far as rezonings go for this month, I have none. So I know you guys will be disappointed. You love seeing me on Thursday night, County Commission night, but you'll have to wait until August for that, I'm sorry. But that's the main part of my report. I do have one other item that I'd like to discuss with you tonight, and this is kind of furthering the discussion that we had on our rezoning and Board of Zoning appeal mail-outs that we do for our public hearing cases. There is a file on your iPad that I did a little bit of research for you regarding, it's called the Public Notice Mail-Out Distance Comparison or something to that effect on there. You'll see, when you pull that up, you'll see that I've broke it down into 2 different categories. We have counties and then municipalities. I figured we'd kind of look at the whole gamut of jurisdictions. So you've got 9 different counties, including ours. You'll see ours that's kind of italicized there. And then you'll see 11 municipalities. These are primarily around the Middle Tennessee area. The counties, there are a few, there's 1 or 2 in West Tennessee, 1 or 2 in East Tennessee, mostly because I know the planners that work out there, so I just thought I would just contact them to kind of see what they do. And what I actually was kind of surprised to see when I look at this was the amount of jurisdictions, not just counties, but municipalities as well, that only do adjacent property owners and those directly across the street on their mail-outs, where we do 500 feet. Around the entire property to property owners, which you'll see the only ones that actually do more than what we do currently, Bedford County, for their rezoning applications, they do 1,000 feet, which Bedford County being a more rural county, I wasn't terribly surprised at that. I was a little more surprised when I saw Brentwood for their rezoning applications where they do 1,000 feet. Their Board of Zoning Appeal applications, however, only 250. So this is just kind of a comparison as to how we stack up to counties in this area or even some around the state, and then the municipalities in the Middle Tennessee area. Some other interesting nuances I thought I saw on here, that there are a few on here, like Gallatin being one of them, Eagleville being another one, where the mail-outs that they do require, they require the applicant to actually do the mail-out and to bear the cost of the mail-out. That was interesting. I had never seen that. I didn't realize that some jurisdictions actually did it that way. We don't do it that way. We handle the mail-outs, everything that we have in-house. There's also some that require certified mail. I think there was only 1 or 2 that did that. Sumner County was one. I think that was the only one that did that. I think everybody else did first class. But again, this just kind of gives you an idea of how we stack up to other areas. We did crunch some numbers just to give you an idea. We looked at the zoning applications that we've considered this fiscal year and how that would compare, basically looking at 500 versus 750 versus 1,000. It's not as simple as just saying, okay, if we double the distance, we're going to double the mail-outs. There are some that we looked at where when we increased it to 500, from 500 to 1,000, you only got maybe another 7 or 8. There were some where it didn't just double, it almost tripled the number. So basically what we looked at for just this fiscal year, it pretty much was doubled when you looked at the overall average. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case every year. It just depends on the property because everyone is different. Some are going to be more rural, some are going to be more urbanized. You're going to get more on some, you're going to get not as many on others. I mean, you're going to get more regardless of what you do if you decide to do anything. But it's not just a quick and dirty, yeah, we're going to double everything. It just doesn't really work out that way. So just so you are all aware of the different protocols that we use, and this is something that I noticed when I had my conversations with the various municipalities and counties, the mailouts aren't the only things that we do for that, any kind of a rezoning application. Sorry.
Chairman Harris has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I see I see where you go. I'm kind of losing you a little bit because are we doing good or are we doing bad?
Well, compared to everybody else in this region, with the exception of Brentwood and Bedford County, we're doing more, we're either doing as much or more than everybody else.
And you're happy with the way we do business now?
I am.
You don't want to make any changes?
Only if you would like us to make some. I think that we're doing a good job with what we do right now. Yes, sir.
Chairman Peake?
I actually asked him to look at this because I was getting complaints from people in my area saying, hey, I didn't see this, or hey, I didn't get a mail out, you know, and they'll miss the zoning sign. Sometimes the grass will grow up, or they'll get knocked over, or, you know, whatever. They just don't notice them. So I don't have a problem expanding it myself to 1,000 feet. You know, in the rural areas, if you expanded it 1,000 feet on me, you're still going to have the same 4 people that are surrounding me. But if you did that near a subdivision, I could see where you could easily triple the number of people that you'd get. And you said basically on average it would double your cost on postage. Is that right?
It was a little bit more than that, actually. Sorry.
How much money are we talking about, Doug?
Well, overall, it's about doubled. Not quite, but it's like almost. It went from basically, now this is just mail-out cost, understand. This isn't staff time, envelopes, paper, and all that, but you're basically going from about $1,100 to $2,100. So we don't budget that much right now, but I mean, that's something we could always budget more of. But I think the comparison, I wanted you to have the comparison just to show what we were doing and how we were comparing to other jurisdictions around us.
I mean, personally, I don't have a problem spending another $1,000 for postage. I understand there'll be more staff time, so that'd be a little more money, but that's not a whole lot of money to get the word out a little bit further.
It's not a lot more money, but what if we took and like where the applicants was going for a commercial business, a home-based business, or anything like that, and then let those pay for the mail-outs if it was a commercial situation?
Well, I like the sounds of that, and I liked it when he was talking about doing that. I mean, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, the biggest thing with that, and like I said, I didn't realize that some jurisdictions did that until doing this, is how we track that. There's not a whole lot on this list to actually do it that way. I'd have to get with them to find out how exactly to track that. There was one that required certified mail, and then they required them to make the jurisdiction, the return receipt, they had to go back to the jurisdiction. Now, obviously, certified mail, that's a whole nother ballgame. That's a whole heck of a lot more expensive than first class. You're talking $6, $7 a letter at that point. So, and those were the ones that did adjacent property owners, so obviously they weren't going to have as much cost involved. Before going to a system where the applicant was responsible for that, we'd need to look into that a little bit more, quite frankly, because I wouldn't be comfortable right now saying that, yeah, we can just go ahead and jump into that. There'd be some logistics we would have to kind of work out on that.
Is it
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
just
Dodd.
on that topic specifically, I like the idea of the objective third party being in charge of that, even if you charge the applicant for the cost. But I, for one, would be an advocate for the county continuing to do the logistics, the record keeping, the confirmations of who's in the list, did the mail go out, and then you keep your statistics of who showed up, who responded. Just my opinion.
So you're advocating leave it just like it is, not change the distance?
Leave the cost component like it is, number one. Leave the cost component where the county pays, even if the applicant gets charged for it in an invoice from the county. That's another topic, how we pay for it. I wouldn't want to change that the county, as the objective third party, takes care of the mailing.
We send it out, is what you're saying?
You send it out.
Okay.
You print off the names. Just that way you're doing the service to the citizen, charge the applicant, whatever. As far as the distance goes, I'm somewhat ambivalent. The only question I would ask, is there a professional planner methodology to the 500 that appears to be rather consistent?
I don't think that there's any kind of, there's not like a planning handbook for mail-outs or anything like that where we went to that, and that's what we did. 500 has been the distance we have used at the county since I've worked here, and for some time before that. Murfreesboro, when I worked at Murfreesboro prior to working here, was 250 from the moment I started to the present. So that's been 20-plus years at this point. So from that standpoint, there's not a best practices, I think is what you're asking in that regard. Yeah.
Commissioner Blair?
I mean, I think we could. Now, I mean, that kind of begs the question, do we do that on the front end, or do we do it after we do the mail-out? Because we won't know until they submit something as far as what property we're talking about, because we would have to actually run the analysis to see how many notices that's going to be. And are we going to build in time estimates for staff time, or are we just doing postage? I mean, that would be another question I would have. I mean, if this is something you would like to look into, I mean, I think we could crunch some more numbers and try to kind of work something out. But, I mean, if that's the route you want to go, and just have us mail it out, like I said, I like keeping the mail out, like Commissioner Dodd was saying. I think that's a better option. But if we're going to talk about just charging, if we're just going to charge them the fee for the postage, that's easy enough. But if we're talking about staff time and, building in a factor for, paper and envelopes and things like that, that might take a little more digging.
So, with the agendas we have and budget coming up, I'd kind of like to take this under advisement and perhaps come back with, because it could be just a matter of, is it time to tweak your fees in general? This is kind of leading into the bigger conversation that we've touched on already. Is it time to look at the fees of 2 or 3 of these departments? So I don't know that we need to take full action yet till we kind of, and then frankly I'd like to postpone it until after budget and kind of dig into those, drill down into it a little.
Make a good argument. I was going to make a motion to go to 1,000 feet, but I can see, you've got a good point. I don't mind waiting. But, Doug, if you can dig a little deeper, maybe give us I'm worried more about your staff hours. I mean, we pretty well see what the postage is going to be, on an average. It can make a big difference if everything got rezoned next to large subdivisions. But I don't expect, that much variance from one year to another.
Right. It's hard. It's just so hard to say. Just like I may even go back to last fiscal year just to see what the comparison may be, because like I said, we just to try to get some idea, we just used from July 1 through the present just to see what zoning applications, and we looked at both Board of Zoning Appeals and rezonings both. So I mean, we'd have some time before our next committee meeting in August to have some additional numbers for you at that point.
Okay. Any more questions for Doug?
And, Mr. Chairman, that is the extent of my report this month.
We'll be looking for a motion to approve his report. And a second?
Second.
Everybody say aye in agreement.
Aye.
Noes? Passed 100%. Thank you, Doug. That brings us down to the last one, will be solid waste. Mr. Nolan.
Good evening again. As you can see on the landfill report, it's been kind of slow. We still have, the landfills staying on the same schedule we've been on. We're still taking in a little bit of stuff, but not a lot. Then the next pages, you'll see where we've paid the bills for the month.
Mac.
Sir.
We requested on this last bid that we did for the people that are doing the workforce there, are you getting those clock in, clock out times?
Yes, sir, it comes with the bill.
And that's coming with it? Okay. Thank you, sir. And that's going to the mayor's office after you're through with it, or you maintaining that?
We sign off on it, and he sends it to us in one group. I sign off on it, and it all goes to finance in that same group.
Okay, so we got a time clock set up for them out there?
They've got their own, yes.
Okay.
Any questions on the landfill? We still have some leachate issues. We've got some open sumps. The weather's not been good for us. Also, we have a contractor that comes in and hauls our leachate off and takes it to their facility in Nashville and treats it. And they've been staying busy. So our game plan is to have them come in and pump those holes dry. Once they get that hole dry, then we can go up gradient where we want to put in our permanent sump, dig the hole, put in the pipe, the gravel, fill it back in and be finished, and then fill the current hole. And TDEC agrees with my fear. My fear is that if we don't drain that current hole dry and we go up gradient and we start digging in and we create a vent, then we're going to have a problem. All that leachate's going to come out that hole that's already filled with leachate. So if we can start with that hole dry, we're looking at probably 6 to 7 truckloads of leachate in that hole. So we've got time to stop the hole that stop the drain, stop the vent, and stop it from draining. So that's part of the reason we have not finished the sump process. Does that make sense? Yes. No.
Mac,
Yes,
do we have, help me understand because I'm kind of confused. Do we not have a pump that goes to Republic, or where they pump our leachate out?
They do not pump our leachate. Now, you are correct. We do have one well that has a permanent pump and tank. And we go up there on that hill usually twice a week. And most we'll get out of it's about 250 gallons. And then there's a valve that we open, and it's just a 3-inch line that gravity feeds over to them. And it's less than 1,000 gallons a month.
Now, is that something that we could negotiate? If we're talking with the public, negotiate something like that where we don't have to give them the landfill, but work with them on pumping what you're wanting to do?
They're already pretty much at capacity on their system, and then the Murfreesboro sewer line that they feed into is pretty much at capacity. So neither one of them want us to put our leachate in with theirs. Now, our leachate is a whole lot more mild than theirs, so it would help dilute theirs, but ours is such a smaller volume than theirs, it wouldn't do much to help them. Now, the pipe structures have been ordered and they have been delivered, and the rock has been we let the rock company know that we're going to call for it when we're ready, but we have not had to send the rock yet. but when the weather permits and the leachate hauler can get us pumped down, then we'll start that process. Any other questions? We'll move on to the convenience center side. Convenience centers has been staying busy. Middle Point has been staying busy as well. Yesterday, I haven't done today's paperwork. Yesterday, we averaged 4.1 loads per driver. When Middle Point is not as busy and they can get their trash pushed better, we'll average 7.8. We're a few drivers short, and so we've been running a little bit of overtime to keep caught up with it, but we have been staying caught up. Any questions on the convenience center?
Actually, I do have one.
Okay.
Commissioner Piercy, I might want to ask you this one too. A while back, we allocated some money to you for the Walter Hill.
Correct?
Is that completed? Or
No.
are we still,
No, it's not.
is there an update or?
It's a long, drawn-out process.
Is it to your satisfaction, sir?
Not yet.
Okay.
It would be open and finished. Not to give you a smart answer, but that was my goal, and we haven't reached it yet.
So are you happy or not happy?
I'm dissatisfied.
You're satisfied?
I'm dissatisfied.
Dissatisfied, okay.
We still have traffic in the streets, liability for wrecks to happen.
Now, I understand what you're doing, and we approved this for you.
Correct?
And I should have asked this question we just voted on an engineer design. Does he have that in his mind when he's doing this? Because he said Walter Hill.
I have no idea.
He's already done the engineer drawing for that. The highway department, Landfill Road is a county road, so that's going to need to have some widening, some asphalt, some striping, which we'll wind up paying for the striping. But the highway department's got a lot of other big projects that's more important to them than this is, and I understand what their priorities are. You know, so that's part of the reason we haven't gotten it completed.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, if you'll recall, kind of gave approval to move forward on the Walter Hill site. However, actually Mr. Bradley has looked at that, but then we talked about, do we look for another site to locate this on, because of the site doesn't belong to us. It's not county property. We have approached a landowner that's close to that location, met with him, and he said that he'd be willing to sell that piece of property to the county if we wanted to locate this site on his property for $350,000, and he would throw in 30,000 PPEs. He had bought some PPEs when they were hot and everybody was buying them, and he would throw that in to boot. So, I'm not sure that that's some direction that we need to see before we spend any dollars of this magnitude of, what did we say a minute ago, Mr. Bradley? Walter Hill was about $700,000. Do we want to spend that on property that we don't own, or do we want to spend another $350 and buy property that we would own? It already has electricity to it, etc.
To my understanding, that lease is up. Am I correct?
I don't know the answer to that, to be honest. The last time the lease was talked about, the email that I found the other day just by accident, was 2013. That's when it was talked about. So if it was actually redone, it's going to be up in 2 years.
I would think that Jay would have to look at that site. I know there's a road and it goes through trees. It would be protected, but still probably have to go back through planning and get that piece of property rezoned, because basically he just has a storage shed on that right now and is selling dirt.
Knowing the location, I would say it would be more compared to where it is now.
Well, that piece of property's at least twice the size of where we currently are, isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
So that the engineering to do that would be higher. Mike Hughes and I had discussed that too. There's electricity running along the highway, but not back to it, so you're going to have roughly 1,100 feet of three-phase power to run back there.
He does have electricity to his shed, but not three-phase.
Right. And then the other concern that I had with it is the 1,100 feet distance. What's he going to do between us and them? If he's going to put businesses on that little street that we create, and then our traffic's going to block their traffic, so some of those issues.
He said that there's outcroppings of rocks getting through those trees, and that's why there's no trees back where he's cleared it off, so there's no rock outcroppings. But, you know, even if it's flat rock, we're not looking for any depth of soil there for anything else to put the site on. But that's the only property we've been able to identify in that area to locate this site on.
Mentioned
the convenience center.
There wouldn't be soils there, but you may not need them if you needed the soil side where you're 600 feet from that.
Correct.
What do you call it?
Chairman Piercy.
Yes, sir.
One thing I want to mention, or it comes to me, you know, if I'm renting from somebody, and I'm a leaser, and I want to make a modification to the property that I'm leasing, I need to go to that property owner and ask them. And to me, the Walter Hill property kind of falls in that category. Yeah, we'd like to make these changes, but I think before we can actually make those changes, we need to okay that with the people that we're basically leasing from. And I understand, you know, that lease agreement, I think that they've said in the past they'd work with us, and I believe that. But I still think it's incumbent on us, if we decide to make some changes there at Walter Hill, we need to okay that through our tenant owner process.
All those changes would be on the outside of that property fence. It'd be on landfill road property.
Either on the county landfill road or the state highway. It wasn't on the Republic's property.
I mean, if that's the case, you know, I don't have a problem there, but, you know, we start making modifications on that property, we need to run that by the people that we're leasing from.
Does that conclude your report, Matt?
Yes, sir.
We would entertain a motion to approve his report. And a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Report approved. You have anything else, Matt?
I have two budget amendments. Attached to your report is one, and then I'll put another one on your table this evening. We need to do a budget amendment, and y'all were talking about engineering, so we were looking at pulling $3,500 out of that engineer line item, which would leave $252,750 in that line for the engineering, and it would be to purchase lubricants, and that's where we're going to try to start doing our own maintenance on the trucks. We've got the bulk oil tanks in place. We've got the plumbing to those, the airlines to those. We don't have enough money to buy the engine oil and hydraulic oil. So that's what this would do, fill those two tanks.
So moved.
Need to call a roll on that. Call a roll for us.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Chairman Piercy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next budget amendment is the piece of paper I handed out, and it's to do a budget amendment for where we repair roll-off containers and paint them instead of buying new ones. We've got a repair guy there, and he's been working very hard, and he's got a lot of them fixed, and he's got a lot more to do. So we're asking for a $10,000 budget amendment to go into that line item, coming from the asphalt line item, to have enough money to be sure we pay him through the end of this budget year.
So moved.
Have a motion? A second. Call roll.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Chairman Piercy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Anything else, Mac?
I don't have anything unless y'all have some other questions about other stuff we've already talked about.
I have a question about hauling trash on our highways. It seems to be there has been an increase of private haulers. Trash haulers with garbage trucks enclosed, hey, that's one thing. But I'm seeing an enormous amount of pickup trucks with tag-along trailers with wire cages on them, evidently picking up residential trash. Well, we had one yesterday, scattered, I did not see it, but I presume it's probably where this come from. It's scattered trash from DeJourney all the way to Lascassas, all the way to Jefferson Pike to the landfill. Is that regulated? Do they have to buy permits, license, or anything to haul trash?
EDEC does not regulate that at all. They regulate the disposal facilities, but not the hauling companies. And we don't have any regulations in our county for that either.
Is that something our county could adopt? It needs attention.
I think that's something that probably would go back to steering committee and see if there's something that could be done. That, I mean, don't we require Republic and other vehicles to tarp? So why couldn't we somehow make them register through resolution? If you're going to be in that line of business, they register with the county of some sort. That's going to be a legal question, and then require them, if they're in that business, to tarp, instead of blowing it all over, and then they call and say, hey, the journey looks nasty, and so is Highway 96.
Now, back when I was a driver, my route was Shelbyville, Bedford County, and Bedford County required our truck to have a permit, yearly permit. And you would pull in to get the permit, and there's a wing vent sticker. The trucks don't have wing vents anymore, but it was a wing vent sticker that went in, and they basically did a DOT inspection on the truck, and it was $5. I paid for it out of my pocket, and I'd get reimbursed. Their purpose was to know who's hauling trash in the county. That's the reason they did it. Davidson County did the same thing, and I don't know how much their permits were, but every truck active inside Davidson County was required to have that permit on the window. I don't know if either one of them still do that, but that's how it was done in the late 80s and early 90s.
Mr. Mayor, can you look into, I kind of agree what he says. We need to have some type to know what's going on with haulers and not just somebody to come in there and do what they want as well. So, and that can come through me, but can you check with state law and see if we are able to charge a license?
Yes, sir.
To keep up with that, or, if they get caught hauling without that license, and we can, be an ordinance on that?
I'll check and report back to the next meeting at your August meeting.
And require TARP as well. I think we need to.
Are we meeting in July?
No, I'm not meeting in July. I'm meeting in August.
August. Yeah, I can report to steering at that point in time.
Steering's not. Yeah.
Or do you want me to report back to this committee or steering?
No, it needs to go through steering.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because it would be a regulation to resolution and have to be done. I can report that, and then also hopefully have that information at the next Public Works meeting also.
Mr. Piercy is talking about what he's seen was actually in my neighborhood.
I know it was.
So he came out of my neighborhood, and I was trying to understand how he was picking up those containers and throwing them in there without a lift. So, yes, I did see that, and I agree with you 100%.
So
we really should, if it was possible, require them to have, if we're going to require them to tarp, we need to require them to have solid sides. Because they're using wire cattle panels for sides, because it's cheap, it's quick. And hey, they got 6-inch squares all over them. It's got to come through when the wind hits it. So,
makes sense.
It saves a lot of trash pickup.
Yeah.
A lot of trash.
Most disposal facilities, Middle Point being one of them, require the incoming vehicle to be tarped. It cannot be open. And most of those instances, if you pull up on the scale with no tarp, you're not coming any further. Our landfill does not have that requirement. We're only accepting brush and tires. We can adopt that requirement. There's several counties that were using litter grant funds and handing out tarps, and they somehow passed a tarp resolution to where if you were going to the convenience center in a pickup truck, either the trash cans had to have lids attached, or you had, if it was loose bags, they had to be tarped.
Sure.
Have anything else?
I don't have anything else unless y'all got questions about
Any questions for Mr. Nolan? Thank you, Mac. That brings us down to other business. Do we have any other business tonight? Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last month, members, you asked me to look into finding an environmental attorney. Chairman Cush and the committee asked me to do that. I have found one, talked with him today. In the event that, I'm not sure why we need it, but the committee wanted me to find one. I have found one in the event that we decide to go down some road of needing an environmental attorney. His name is Bill Penny. Talk to him. He is willing to, he's probably one of the best environmental attorneys in the state. He currently represents waste management in the lawsuit that was filed against Metro. So the first question I asked him, would that be a conflict of interest if we were to select Waste Management, because Waste Management is one of our 4 RFP companies. He said it possibly could be, but only in the event that it involved disposal. Depends on what we would need, but he has agreed that we would have to sign to represent us if we need. I said, I'm not saying that we need you at this point, but we'd have to sign an engagement contract going forward. He charges $500 per hour plus. So that's what he has a specialty, so that's why he gets what he gets. So I did what you asked me to do, and I have his telephone number if needed.
Okay, thank you very
That's
much.
it.
Mr. Nolan?
I did forget one thing, and it's not critical, but I would like for y'all to consider finding us another disposal location. We would have to pay for it. But if something happened today, an earthquake, and Middle Point became an island and we can't get there, we've got no place to go.
Thank you. Food for thought. Generally, this committee does not meet in July. Would we want to move our subcommittee meeting to that date? Do we need to, or are we going to wait till the 19th of July to do the subcommittee? When we chose that date, I don't think we really realized July meeting didn't meet.
My preference is not to meet in July if possible.
Well, you've already got a subcommittee meeting in July.
Yeah.
19th.
We need a break.
Just telling you my preference.
Are y'all finished?
So what's the question again? Do we want to add a regular Public Works meeting to combine with?
No, the subcommittee, we didn't know if we needed another meeting for the subcommittee or not. I reckon we're going into that meeting for questions, to come up with questions to ask the 4 or 5 that we've chosen, so it's just a thought.
It's July the 6th. I'll be out of town, so y'all meet away.
Meeting adjourned.